Hello and welcome to episode 117 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On today's show, Sarah Says will be back on the podcast to continue our conversation about Epcot's World Showcase. In episode 115, we went all the way around from Canada to Japan. This is such a fun conversation, going in depth on my favorite part of all of Walt Disney World. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started. Here's Sarah Says. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thank you for having me back.
So this is the second part of our conversation about World Showcase in Epcot. We made it from Canada all the way around to the Japan Pavilion, and now we are going to do the second half of Epcot's World Showcase. We're going to pick things back up with the American Adventure, which I know is your favorite World Showcase pavilion, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, because I love to visit the country that I'm currently standing in while I'm on vacation. Though, as many listeners, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I took a poll of people to find out what their least favorite Epcot pavilion was. And I had a lot of people like backing me up on the American Adventure, that it's like, but we're in America. Why do we need to visit America again? Though there are some things I do like about the American Adventure that we will talk about shortly. But yeah, this is definitely not my favorite pavilion.
So in your Twitter poll, did the American Adventure win or lose, whatever you want to say?
It was pretty tied with one that we have coming up. That for
I know
favorite,
exactly which one.
There was a really interesting trend that a lot of people voted for wherever they're from. So we have a lot of listeners from different parts of the world. I have a lot of people who I follow and follow me back. They're from different parts of the world, and they would all vote for whatever pavilion they live in, like in real life. And it just made me laugh. And then there were a few like here and there that it was other ones. But yeah, they're the two top ones that, man, I just got hit by everyone. We're definitely American Adventure, and then
we'll talk about the other one when we get
when we get there. I'll let you know who it is.
That is an interesting trend, because I remember Steven from A Life in the Parks, who's been on the show before. He was talking about how he does not like the UK pavilion. He, of course, lives in England, and he is not a fan of the UK pavilion. The Sarah Enigma, who's been on the show before, she is from Canada, and she's just never stepped foot in the Canada pavilion. She's like, why would I want to go to the Canada pavilion? I live there.
Been there, done that.
And I'm like, well, that's how Sarah Says feels about the American Adventure. She lives there, and she doesn't want to do it. So I am going to talk about the American Adventure because I kind of think it's a middle-of-the-road pavilion. I don't think it's the worst. I don't think it's near the top. I don't think it's one of the best.
There are some good things about it. I just won't spend my whole day there.
And I'm going to say, and I think Sarah will back me up on this, I'm not like one of those guys who's like, America, heck yeah, like everything America is going to be my favorite thing. Like, I am not one of those people, but there are things that I like about this pavilion. One, it might have the best bathroom in World Showcase, and that is important. And you need a bathroom right there, smack dab in the middle. That is an important place to have one. The American Adventure show. I know so many Disney people who have never seen this show, and it is incredible. It's awesome. It has a ton of animatronics. The Ben Franklin animatronic at one point walks. It is an animatronic that actually walks. The Benjamin Franklin animatronic actually is wearing underwear that is time frame appropriate. And that's one of those things that everybody loves, the small details about Disney. But the show is really, really good. There are some parts of it that I think are great. I love that they include Chief Joseph. I love that they include Frederick Douglass. I think they miss the mark very, very much on the Civil War and the Two Brothers song. I think they need to replace the Two Brothers song. And then even at the end, when they have the America Spread Your Golden Wings and Fly song that I intellectually know is the cheesiest, most America propaganda song that could possibly have ever been written. It makes Lee Greenwood say, why couldn't I write something that over the top patriotic? So while this over the top patriotic song is playing, they're not showing us like our leaders are so good and
Mhm.
the troops and all that kind of stuff. It talks about actual Americans. It shows Bob Dylan, Sinatra, Madonna, Jim Henson. Obviously, there's an applause line when they show Walt Disney, and everybody gets really excited for it. They show Arthur Ashe and LeBron James and Beyonce. Like, it's about Americans striving to succeed, striving to accomplish things. If we talk about an American dream, it is supposed to be people reaching out for their goals and trying to achieve them. And whether it's true, whether it's not true, they definitely make you feel like it's true when you're watching the end of this show. And that's what makes me feel like, I call it that good type of patriotism. Like, not that you're going to go out and hate somebody else, but that you are going to say, like, I'm from the same place that produced Frank Sinatra. That's pretty awesome. Like, he was great. Bob Dylan's awesome. Like, I love that aspect of the show. I also love the Voices of Liberty, the a cappella group that performs in the American Adventure Pavilion. They perform in the lobby as you're waiting to get into the show, but that lobby has been specifically built to be acoustically beneficial for the Voices of Liberty, and they are just so darn impressive.
Yeah, the Voices of Liberty, I think, of the few things that I like about the American Adventure Pavilion, they are amazing. They're very talented. Like you said, the way that the building is made and the room is made for the acoustics, it's absolutely beautiful. And you don't even have to be in there to be waiting to go see the show. There's people who just go in because it's also air conditioned inside that building, that if it is hot, it is crowded, you can go in, hang out, you can watch this amazing a cappella group, and then you can go back on your way if you choose to, or go see the show. So yeah, they are definitely a highlight of this pavilion.
And another thing they did at the American Adventure was they took their greatest weakness and turned it into their greatest strength. We're not talking a lot about the restaurants during these World Showcase episodes, but this was a garbage quick service location. It was just awful. And they turned it into Regal Eagle Smokehouse. It is now themed towards the Muppets, which is just awesome. Of course, you want to theme the restaurant in the American Adventure to Sam Eagle. How could you not do that? And now it's one of the best quick service locations on property.
I haven't had it, but I've heard it definitely is far superior to what was there. And I heard, which I have a weakness in my heart for, is they now carry, not just during Food and Wine, but the Regal Eagle has burnt ends all the time now, which are like some of my absolute favorite barbecue. So I'm very excited for eventually when I get to go back and I can actually get those. It's going to be, and it's not a festival, it'll be awesome.
No matter how much people in the Disney community absolutely hate change, this is a change that everybody has said was definitely well worth it. Now, we are going to move on from the American Adventure to what I would say is hands down, no question, the worst pavilion in all of World Showcase, and it should be so much better. I think the missed potential makes me more upset than the pavilion itself, and that is Italy. Yes, they just added a gelato stand. Why they didn't have a gelato stand before, I will never know, but that is a step in the right direction, but it's still kind of creeping towards the American Adventure. Like, it doesn't even feel like you're in the Italy pavilion yet. But then there are some gift shops. There's Tutto Italia. There's Tutto Gusto Wine Cellar. Tutto Gusto Wine Cellar is really cool. It is definitely worth it if you can spend some time in there. And there's Via Napoli, the restaurant that has pizza. I know that kids love pizza. It is a chance to get something that is going to feed the whole family. I think this was our cheapest meal when we used to go on vacation, because you could get a gigantic pizza for like $40 that would feed your entire party. And where are you going to feed your entire party for $40 anywhere else in Epcot?
Or on property.
Touche. However, if you're not going to one of these restaurants, there's just nothing to do in the Italy Pavilion.
Yeah, and this was the other one that when I was talking about my poll, that all the ones that popped up first were Italy and the American Adventure. So yeah, Italy definitely. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I've ever walked into the Italy Pavilion, because even walking past it, it looks like there's nothing in it. So I know it's there, but I don't have any recollection of any time I've been to Epcot of memories of being in the Italy Pavilion.
This is a pavilion that is just screaming out for a gondola ride.
Oh, yeah.
It would be so easy to do it. You could have cast members who are rowing the boat. They do it at the Venetian in Las Vegas. They should be able to do it in Walt Disney World, a place where you actually expect rides. It just does not have enough stuff. It just needs more to do, because I walk past this all the time. And then you talk about some of the other pavilions having meet and greets. In the last episode, we talked about Alice and Mary Poppins in the UK pavilion, Aurora and Belle in the France pavilion, Jasmine in the Morocco pavilion. Italy could have Pinocchio, Geppetto, the characters from Luca.
Oh, yeah.
It would be very easy to have characters meet in the Italy Pavilion. It's just missing the mark.
Yeah, I completely agree. It needs a little work.
And now, as we keep walking to our right throughout World Showcase, we are going to come to a pavilion where I think Sarah and I are going to have some disagreements about the quality of the pavilion. So, Sarah, how do you feel about the Germany Pavilion?
I'm probably in the minority, but I love the Germany Pavilion. I mean, there's not a ridiculous ton of amount of things to do there, kind of like the cool Japan Pavilion, but I love the Germany Pavilion. I love the restaurant at the Germany Pavilion. I love the shop at the pavilion, and I love just hanging out, and it's in the little town square area, and yeah, I love it. And they have beer. They have so much beer, and it's amazing.
So yes, if you like beer, you're probably going to like the Germany Pavilion. And I will agree that Biergarten is a very good restaurant. It's fun. They have the band perform. It's all you care to enjoy, which is awesome. You can just sit in the air conditioning almost halfway through World Showcase and just eat so much that you have to buy a new pair of pants because the ones that you wore in don't fit anymore. And the food at Biergarten's good as well. Even as a vegetarian, like, I can find enough that I eat to the point of gluttony when I am at Biergarten.
It's so good. Well, and the thing is, I don't know if it's still this way since they reopened from the pandemic, but it used to be you sat in true like Oktoberfest style where you sat with a bunch of people you don't know. And they're on these long like picnic table type tables. I mean, yes, you're in your own chairs. I don't, at least from every time I've been there, but it's cool because you are potentially, if your party isn't that big, you're seated with people you've never met before. And we've met some really amazing people when we've gone, and families, and the wait staff there is always amazing. And the band, as you said, the show is great. And they encourage people to come down and dance, which you don't really see in many other places in the parks when there is some kind of entertainment during, like a show during your meal. So yeah, it's always a great experience in my opinion.
So Sarah and I definitely get along very well. She's one of my favorite people in the entire world, but there are some places where we are very, very different. And being seated with other parties is definitely one of those areas where Sarah and I disagree. She is obviously a very personable human being, so she would enjoy striking up conversations with people she doesn't know, whereas I am definitely much more reserved in those areas. So the only times I've been to Beer Garden were very close to the pandemic reopening. So maybe I won't like it the next time I'm there as much as I did in previous times where we had to stay 6 feet away from anybody who wasn't a blood relative, which I was perfectly fine with that. A couple other things happening at the Germany Pavilion that are pretty cool. Everybody loves the model train set. This was set up for a festival years and years ago, but it was just so popular that they never got rid of it. My favorite part of that train set is that the town square on the train set has miniature banners for whatever Epcot festival is happening at the time. Like the people in that train town are celebrating the same Epcot festival that we're celebrating. That is one of those little details that Disney does that I absolutely love. And I get so excited on the first day of every festival to go there and see that they have changed that. I know there's probably going to be a festival where, as Disney saves some nickels and dimes here and there, that I'm probably going to go there and they're not going to have done it for that festival. But thus far, they keep doing it, and I love it. It is so cool that this little town in the train set is celebrating the Epcot Festival.
That's really cool.
Another great thing about the Germany Pavilion, the Snow White meet and greet. She meets by her wishing well. This is always going to have a special place in my heart because when I was trying to convince Courtney, my wife, to visit Walt Disney World for the first time back when we lived in Arizona, I was trying to plan out a Walt Disney World vacation. And when I said, "Do you want to go to Walt Disney World?" the first thing Courtney said almost instinctively was, "Will I get to meet Snow White?" And I'm like, yes, if you say yes to this, I can guarantee you will meet Snow White. So this meet and greet at the Germany Pavilion was so special to me that first time because I know that even though meeting Snow White wasn't Courtney's favorite thing about Walt Disney World, it probably wasn't even the thing she was looking forward to the most about that trip. It was her reflexive answer when she thought Disney World means this. To her, it was meeting Snow White. And that's always going to be one of my favorite Walt Disney World memories. Plus, it's never really that long of a line. It is something that kids like. It's something that adults like. You need more of that in World Showcase. Originally, there was going to be a Rhine River ride in the Germany Pavilion. I do think we need more rides in World Showcase. Personally, I think this is where a Rapunzel Tangled ride.
Oh.
You could be on the boat. There could be a scene with the lanterns. It's just perfect. I don't think you would ever run the risk of what happened to the Norway Pavilion, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I think the Germany Pavilion is still going to have a personality, but I think you need to put a Tangled Dark ride or maybe water ride in this pavilion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a good choice.
The Germany Pavilion is also one of my favorite trivia questions because when it opened, the Germany Pavilion was the only pavilion that wasn't actually a country. Because when it opened, Germany was split between East and West Germany. Obviously, now that has been something that probably a lot of our listeners weren't even alive.
Right?
When German reunification happened, but the Germany Pavilion did exist before that. As we continue to walk around World Showcase, we come to Refreshment Outpost. This is essentially a festival booth. They basically rotate the offerings at this for each festival. It is heavily themed towards Coca-Cola. There's a lot of space in between the Germany Pavilion and the China Pavilion. Hint, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
This was voted in like the top 5 of the worst pavilions. And I'm like, it's not a pavilion.
It's not a pavilion. That's not fair. To call
I was like, wait.
Refreshment Outpost a pavilion and compare it with Italy.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention it because you do go quite some distance between the Germany Pavilion and the next pavilion, which is China. China is a difficult one for me because it is beautiful. When we talk about all the different places that you can get pictures, we talked about it in the Canada Pavilion, that one is very photogenic and they have the waterfall. We talked about different places to take pictures in the Japan Pavilion, different places where you can just sit and relax and almost feel like you're not in a theme park. The China Pavilion is gorgeous. It has the gardens. I guess you would say it's a pagoda as well. The pagoda is beautiful. The tile work is amazing. I love the colors. It has the gate as you enter. That gate is beautiful. There's still not too much to do in the China Pavilion. They have the movie Reflections of China, which is extremely outdated.
Yes.
Not only is it outdated, but we were promised an updated movie that was going to take that 360 visual structure to the next level. And there weren't going to be those bars in between. It was going to be one flowing picture. And they just have not announced that they've scrapped it, but it certainly doesn't look like they're going to be doing it anytime in the near future. I was really looking forward to that movie because Reflections of China is just an outdated movie. I like it. It's a little bit cheesy, but let's be honest, Disney is sometimes a little bit cheesy. Like, that's part of the charm. There are some quotable moments to that movie. There are some that are funny, but I don't watch it very much. And for somebody who probably wants to visit China more than 75% of the people at Walt Disney World, if I'm not visiting this pavilion, if I'm not seeing this movie a lot, I can't imagine there are that many people who do see it. Now, there are a couple things about this pavilion that are great. House of Good Fortune, the gift shop, is incredible. You get real Chinese items here. Like, you are getting things that are produced in China. Well, I know you're getting things that are produced in China at every pavilion, but you get things that are produced for manufacture and sale in China. You're getting some of their like potato chip brands, and it's very much a mixture of old and new China in that store. It is great. House of Good Fortune, good for a good 20, 30 minutes of just walking around and window shopping. There is a Mulan meet and greet at the China Pavilion, and the Mulan meet and greet is awesome. I have never had a bad experience doing this meet and greet. Mulan is my second favorite Disney character of all time, so I do this meet and greet a lot. Sometimes it's inside the building, sometimes it's in the garden, which means that they even kind of mix up the meet and greet a little bit. They also have an exhibit right now about Shanghai Disneyland, which is cool. They have cast member costumes. They have models of some of the rides at Shanghai Disneyland. When I walk through this, I am like traveling in my mind. What the video fails to do, making you want to visit China, I feel like the Shanghai Disneyland exhibit actually does make you want to visit China. They need to update this pavilion. If they could give me a Mulan ride, I would absolutely lose my mind. I think everybody would love that. So come on, Disney, make this happen. Lotus Blossom Cafe, the quick service, and Nine Dragons, the table service restaurant, are both serviceable. But here's the problem. Everybody's favorite Chinese food is the Chinese food place at the end of your block, because that's the Chinese food that you eat once a month, once every other month, whatever you do. When you're going to splurge and have Chinese food, you know exactly how you want it to taste. And Disney's never going to be able to replicate that. And they're not going to try to replicate American Chinese food 100%, but that's what most Americans want when they're getting Chinese food. And as we continue with only 2 pavilions remaining, we're going to get to a very controversial one. Some people will jokingly, or maybe not so jokingly, call this the Arendelle Pavilion. Norway has sort of been taken over by Frozen. There is Frozen Ever After, which replaced Maelstrom. Maelstrom was a ride that sort of tried to show you Norwegian culture, but now we have Visit Elsa in her summer ice palace, and there's the Anna and Elsa meet and greet, which is very important because before they built this permanent meet and greet structure, you used to have to wait 2-3 hours to meet Anna and Elsa. But now, through a little bit of Disney magic, they have created a way that you can meet Anna and Elsa in about 20-25 minutes now, and that's very, very important. But how do you feel about this pavilion kind of being taken over by Frozen?
So as many people know, I am definitely not someone who's bothered by IP moving into different places because Arendelle kind of is in Norway. It's like, it is. It's in Norway. It's based on Norwegian culture. It's based on Norwegian folklore, all of that. The last time I was there, Maelstrom was still open. It was right before it closed. And that was back when the line to meet Anna and Elsa, you would stand in it all day. We just walk past it like these people are absolutely crazy. But I'm not going to lie, like I don't mind that they have kind of turned it into Arendelle because they need more things for kids in Epcot. From what I've heard from friends with kids and even adults that I know, that they still really enjoy it. It's different. It's just the whole, you took away Maelstrom, you took away our favorite thing about this pavilion. And so people get really upset about it.
And sometimes Disney adults need to put on their big boy pants because
Yes.
Maelstrom always had a 5 to 10 minute wait.
Always.
It never had a long wait. Now we have Frozen Ever After, which always has 60, 90-minute waits.
Yeah.
So this is definitely more popular. It was definitely a good move by Disney to bring this ride to this pavilion. So I understand why they did this. And we will often have the conversation about the difference between character interactions at Disneyland and at Walt Disney World.
Yes.
Walt Disney World needs to have this Anna and Elsa meet and greet be one where you get in line, you get your picture with Anna, then you get your picture taken with Elsa, and it's more of that conveyor belt situation because Disneyland is a more organic experience. Whereas when you tell somebody, like I talked about Courtney wanting to meet Snow White, how many little girls and little boys were going to Walt Disney World? The absolute first thing they're going to say is, I want to meet Anna or I want to meet Elsa. So you have to make sure you get that done. You can't just wait around for them to randomly walk through the park like they do at Disneyland. It's just not
Like
the
they
same
did when
type
we
of
were
place. It is the way they did it when I was a kid, but
Yep.
I understand why they do it this way. If
Yep.
you're paying that much for a Walt Disney World vacation, you need that picture of your 8-year-old girl with Anna. Like, that has to happen.
Yeah. You don't want to miss, like, these kids, they are just so excited to meet their favorite characters. And like the heartbreak that these kids feel when, could you imagine? It's like in Galaxy's Edge, everyone wants to see Mando, right? There's probably one kid who never got to see Mando because 10,000 people are following Mando. And this kid probably went home just heartbroken because he couldn't. So this gives kids the opportunity that they can see Anna and they can see Elsa.
We could have a 30-minute episode on the Mando Baby Yoda situation in
I could go for
Galaxy's Edge, and we may have that at some point. But I want to move on to the final pavilion, and that is the Mexico Pavilion. This one is cool because when Disney does an outdoors, indoors, that's always fun. And you walk into the pyramid at the Mexico Pavilion, and you are greeted by a Mexican mercado, an outdoor market in Mexico. It has a really cool vibe. It is always nighttime. So when you're outside walking around World Showcase and it's 197 degrees, you go into the air-conditioned Mexico Pavilion and it's dark and relaxing. You can actually ride a ride because the Mexico Pavilion is one of the few pavilions with an honest-to-goodness attraction, which is the Grand Fiesta Tour with the 3 Caballeros, but this is an attraction that only ever has a 5 to 10 minute wait. Mm-hmm. So you can get on a Small World style boat ride, slowly go around and watch the 3 Caballeros having a little bit of mischief and really relax. It's one of the reasons why when we talked about the controversy between starting in Canada and starting in Mexico is I like to start in Canada because I feel like once I've made it around World Showcase one full revolution, I'm ready to sit down in a slow boat ride and just sort of chill for a few minutes.
No, that totally makes sense. I love the ambiance when you walk into the Mexico Pavilion. It is so cool. And it is, yeah, it's a really great pavilion, in my opinion. It's probably up in my top 2 with Germany. Because, yeah, I do. I love the Mexico Pavilion.
And even when I did drink, I wasn't a margarita person, but I know that people love the margaritas there.
They're
So we
amazing.
we have to make note of that. I love how the Three Caballeros ride goes past the San Angel restaurant, which is very reminiscent to over at Disneyland when the Pirates of the Caribbean boats go past Blue Bayou. It's our own little tiny, definitely not quite as cool version of both the ride and the restaurant. Not as good as the ride or the restaurant over in Disneyland, but still a cool experience. So now, Sarah, we have made it through World Showcase. This is where we have a little bit of fun. There are 2 open spaces where they could put new pavilions, one on the Mexico side, one on the Canada side. Sarah, if you were going to add 2 countries to World Showcase, which 2 countries would you pick?
That's really hard. I know for sure I would love to see an Egypt pavilion. I think that would be a really good one because that would have some really cool, like, historical, and it would be so cool, like, from a museum standpoint and an artifact. Yeah, that one would just be super cool. And you could probably have a really cool ride of some sort in Egypt. And then for the second one, that's tough. Part of me, even though it totally, like, crosses over into Animal Kingdom territory, would really want, like, an Australia, New Zealand pavilion, because I think that would be really awesome to have that. But it would have to be one, and it could encompass both, kind of like how the UK kind of does that whole area, supposedly. But because they're so close together, it would be Australia and New Zealand, so you could experience both.
If they would do a combined Australia and New Zealand pavilion, they need to have a band like they have at the UK pavilion so they could play In Excess, AC/DC, Lord, Crowded House, the Divinals. Well, they probably wouldn't do the Divinals at Disney, but they could have some really fantastic music.
So
it would be
good.
awesome. In my 2 choices, I definitely want to stay in Africa because I think Africa is underrepresented. We only have Morocco, but I want to go to either Nigeria or Kenya. These are 2 countries that are growing extremely rapidly. Nigeria is going to be one of the most populated countries in the world very, very soon. And I don't think many people know anything about it. Kenya is another country with a ton of history, and I think a government that would be willing to try to show what they have going on in Kenya. So I definitely think one of those 2 countries really should have a pavilion. I go back and forth on this one. I know Brazil would be a really, really good option because we don't have any South American representation. This is another huge country. It has a very unique history. They speak Portuguese. They don't speak Spanish.
If we had Brazil, we could celebrate Carnival. It would be great.
Oh, that would be awesome. They totally have to do that now. I know that Greece is another one that people have suggested. Obviously, if they do Greece, then we could have that Herc and Megara meet and greet that we so desperately need. So those are just a couple of the pavilions that they could bring to World Showcase. Now, when we record these podcast episodes, Sarah and I talk to each other on Skype, and I can see that I think her husband is rotating behind the computer because I keep seeing her eyes get distracted.
He was up here earlier. Yeah, he was showing me. He bought our son a rock tumbler, and he was like showing it to me as he walked by, and then he went back to. He's gaming with a bunch of friends down in his office. So
because I think you're going out for like Thai food or something, right?
Oh, we're having Pakistani Indian food for dinner tonight that I have to go pick up takeout.
Awesome. So it is time to wrap up this episode about World Showcase. Of course, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show again.
No, thanks for having me. This was a really fun one to go through.
This has been episode 117 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Next Thursday is Star Wars Day, May the 4th. That is when I will be joined by Steven from the YouTube channel A Life in the Parks, who took part in the Star Wars celebration in London earlier this month. Until then, have a great week.